Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Sunday's rendition of Speak Your Mind with Larry Cox. And here in a second, I will be bringing our special guest host on tonight, Mr. Alex McDonald. And as the caption says below, we are going to be talking about property taxes and possible property tax reform in the state of Georgia. So I'm going to bring Alex on, let him say hello, and then I have to do a quick disclaimer before we actually discuss anything.
Hey, Al. Disclaimer. Hey, Larry. A quick disclaimer because I'm on the show.
No,
I don't blame you.
No. You'll once I do the disclaimer, you'll understand. It's something I commonly do. So
okay. But yeah, no. Hi. Thank you for having me. Good evening, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, everyone. I mean, we look like we have some good people here, and I'll say hello to them here, Alex, once I do my disclaimer. So my disclaimer is this: is tonight we're going to talk property taxes, and during this property tax, we're going to be talking some education stuff. So, as usual, I have to say the opinions and statements that I'm going to make tonight about education are my individual opinions as a single board member. They do not represent the opinion of the Rockdale County School District or the opinion of the Rockdale County Board as a whole, but they represent my individual opinion as an individual board member. So I got to do that, Alex, so it doesn't, because I'm not representing the school district or their store. That is my normal disclaimer. I do it quite often, but I thought I better get that out of the way right in the beginning.
Yes, and I'd like to say that your opinions don't reflect mine either.
No, your opinions don't reflect mine, and I don't think they're going to reflect each other very, very well on this. I mean,
I don't know how much we're going to agree on this evening.
I'm not against property tax reform. I just don't believe I'm in.
Interesting you say that. Interesting you say that, because let's start with a point of agreement, something that you and I have agreed on for a very long time. Property taxes are not a sustainable way to fund our schools, and we do need to find a different funding mechanism.
100%. I have totally agreed with that. My concern with this legislation is, it's good as you bring your points up. These are the points I'm going to make about some of this. I believe that states and cities, counties are going to be able to recoup and be well funded. And I'm going to talk about how I believe they'll actually abuse this new process and be even more funded than they were before.
Oh, I agree with you. I do agree with that 100%.
And I believe boards of educations, especially those that are in rural areas and in bedroom communities are not going to be funded enough, especially because of the way the QBE system works. So those are my concerns. And they, at this time, they do not intend to adjust the QBE. In my opinion, this system only works if the QBE is adjusted, and they don't intend to do that at this point. But we'll talk about where I think this legislation is going to go awry, where I personally think if you live in the city or the county, you may end up paying more than you are under this current system.
Yeah. Go ahead and introduce the legislation. Let people know what we're talking about. Explain what it proposes to do.
So
While you do that, because I forgot, I'm going to run and grab some water.
Hey, no, okay, you got it. So what we're talking about is going to be what's called the Georgia Home Act, and it's it's resolution 1114. And the intent of the Georgia Home Act, I'm going to read actually what this legislation is intended to do. Georgia House Republicans are delivering on their commitment to provide historic tax relief to homeowners across the state of Georgia with the introduction of the Homeowners Opportunity and Market Equalization Act of 2026, Georgia Home Act. The property tax assessments have soared. Many local governments have left millage rates significant or even voted to raise them. This has fueled unfair and unsustainable property tax increases that are threatening housing stability and affordability for families across the state. Georgia voters overwhelmingly approved property tax relief in 2024 House Bill 581. Despite the clear demand for relief, over 300 local governments opted out of the measure, while some imposed property tax hikes up to 158% in a single year. That's why the Georgia House of Republicans are leading to ensure that no one is forced out of their homes because they can't afford to pay rent from their government. Now, if anybody remembers, when I took my board seat last year, I sat right on that board seat and I said, if we don't pass 581, if you have all these entities opt out, the Georgia state legislature will come back with a fury and get revenge. Alex, do you recall me saying that?
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, this piece of legislation is that revenge.
I can pull this up on my
go ahead and do that
for folks to see if you want.
Yeah,
Larry.
yeah. Let me
full screen.
let me do. I got to X me out, Alex, and it'll
Okay.
not X me out. I just got to make it full screen. Hold on.
Understood.
Put it up there and I'll. Look it up. Hold on. There we go.
Oh, you have the chat.
I got to take the
hiding it.
chat out too. I got to take it a minute. Nope. I take that. I got to make that big, and then take that over here. We got it. We're good. No, we're
Okay.
not.
Let me make this. Oh, that's zoomed out. Bear with me. That's my bad. Let me get this to where people can see it. Okay. So, quick facts on the Georgia Home Act. Enables the total elimination of homestead property taxes by 2032, provides local governments with the tools they may need to recover lost revenue with an optional flexible 5-penny local sales tax, allows for optional local assessments and fees, caps revenue growth to 3% for non-improved, non-exempt properties, provides homeowner tax relief grants, doubles the state homestead exemption every other year until 2032. Those are what the legislature are calling the quick facts, Larry.
Yeah, and I want to just say this is what that does, Alex. For hold on a second. Now let me put this back in here. Chat.
That's good.
Okay, chat. So, what this when we look at this, right, and it talks about doubling the homestead, I want to let people know what that means, right? Because what does that mean? That means if this legislation would pass this year, we currently get a $2,000 state homestead exemption. In 27, that would go to $10,000. In the year 29, it would go to $30,000. In the year 31, it would be $60,000. Now, this is besides what you already get. If you already get an additional exemption in some other manner, like if you're a senior and you get the $50,000, that would be this plus the $50,000 until 2032. Then in 2032, that's when all homestead property taxes would be eliminated and you would fully transition into this other system of paying for.
Right. Let's talk about this other system of paying.
I really want to talk about the fees and the assessments, Alex.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think we need to talk about all of it because
those are the key parts of replacing as well as those taxes.
Yeah, because I have some numbers I want to show people if I may. So a 5 penny sales tax, right? 3 for the municipality and 2 for the school system.
No, you've got to no. If you already have pennies, those pennies get reallocated. For example, the county already has a host and a splost.
Yep.
Those pennies get reallocated. It's not additional pennies. Those 2 pennies count as 2 of the 3 pennies.
Sure.
So
yes.
Okay.
The total will be 3 for the municipality and 2 for the school system. The current host, current splost will go away.
Those pennies won't go away.
Well, they'll be reallocated. The outcome is exactly the same. I don't think we need to be pedantic about it. At the end of the day, it'll be 3.
But I do want people to understand this.
Yeah, it'll be a total of 3 for the county and a total of 2 for the school system.
But they would but the county would only be getting 1 additional penny at the end of the day, and reallocating 2 pennies they have, which that revenue they are already getting. So they're only going to get 1 additional penny to recoup that homestead property because they're already getting that other revenue. But so there's where the fees and assessments come in as to how the county is going to recoup the rest of those monies.
Yeah, they will collect. I mean, they're still set to collect a lot of money. Currently, they collect $61 million off of real and personal property. That's all property. This will, if you based on current splots collections, which are just shy of 25 million, they would go from 61 million to 75. But that 75 is just to account for homestead property. It doesn't include non-homestead or business. Those will be in addition to the 75 million. You know, it's 25 million times 3. It would be they would be collecting a lot more revenue under this. What would end up happening.
What in the totally across the state, it's the reallocation of $5 billion is what it is. So, and they anticipate through the fees and assessments recouping $3 billion of the 5, and then through those sales tax dollars recouping the other $2 billion. And that's the total for school boards, cities, and counties. That's what the estimation is. It's $5 billion to be shifted from homestead to this other.
Sure. I'm talking about Rockdale money because we know what it will collect in Rockdale because we already have examples of what a sales tax collects.
Yeah.
It's about last year it was just shy of 25 million.
Yeah, it's 24 million some dollars.
Yeah, times that by 3% for the county would be 75. It would be 50 million for education. In addition to that would be the taxes they collect on businesses and non-homestead properties, and then all the other fees and assessments that they do.
Well, but the fees and assessments are the issue.
Yeah, it could be very problematic.
Well, I'll tell you, I did some research, and I called and I talked to some legislators, and actually some of the people I talked to are actually writing the bill. And they've told me the bill is a living, breathing piece of paper and what we have now may not even be what we have at
Sure.
the, you know what I mean? At
Sure.
the session.
It's not going to pass anyway.
Well, it's not
So-
going to pass. We'll talk about that too, right?
Yeah.
So, but these are some of the possible things that can be classified as fees, Alex. Listen to this: police protection, fire protection, emergency medical services such as ambulances, infrastructure, as if in sidewalk and road repavement, can be assessed as fees. You also have stormwater, which we already do as a fee. You have street lighting, solid waste and recycle, and including the running and management of a landfill can be assessed as a fee. Okay.
Mhm.
So, and also code enforcement can be included and assessed as a fee. And that's not all of them. That's just a good example of what
Right.
fees will be accepted. So
Right.
let me
Now,
just give,
I would like to know what they mean by police protection and fire protection.
well, then that's the thing about it. I ask about that too, and they've not defined that yet, right? So
Mhm.
there are certain things under there. Let's take like fire. It would not be fire trucks because that would come under capital, right? So, but there are certain things in the fire and the police that they would define as would
I
qualify
mean,
for
they're not
fees.
talking about the general budget for those departments, right?
No, they would not be talking about the general budget, but they would be talking about they would slice out certain things and say,
Or
well,
they could, and you know they would.
well, that's exactly what they're going to do, Alex. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you that's exactly what would happen. So, but they have to give you an itemized budget
Hmm.
of these, and they have to be billed separately. Now, we've got in Rockdale County right now, we are currently billing a fee included with our tax bill, and that's stormwater. There
Yes.
are 3 pieces of legislation that are introduced this year that actually eliminate fees from being charged with property tax. One of them is 1114, the resolution. One is 1035, and one is 712.
Mhm.
All 3 of those pieces of legislation deal with fees being attached to property tax bills.
Right.
And all 3 of them, and at some point that is going to be taken out, right? Because it seems, and these pieces of legislation are introduced by Democrats and Republicans, so it is a across the aisle issue that they see
Right.
as an issue there. So
Right.
the one thing I do like about it, if it would happen, is the fact that none of these are going to be assessed on your property bill. There comes the problem, Al. Do you remember back in the day before they started putting the stormwater bill included in your taxes? How many
I
people
remember.
paid that?
I can tell you from my own, I'll tell you my own I've told this before. I didn't pay my stormwater bill for the first 5 years, and I didn't pay it intentionally. And I sent them a letter, and I told them, I made it very clear. There is a county owned and maintained drainage ditch down the side of my property. Every time it rains, it floods my property. I'm not paying a penny of their stormwater tax until that's addressed. And I put it on it was on the letterhead from, my firm, civil engineering surveying firm. And I made it they ultimately, after about 5 years, they ultimately came out here and made the necessary repairs. Then I went in and paid all 5 years worth. I just paid all 5 years worth and paid it off.
I remember. I remember
yeah,
that.
But I did not pay it for 5 years. Not
It-
because I'm, not because I was being a deadbeat, but because I had a specific grievance. Now, had that been attached at the time as a fee on my property
your mortgage
taxes,
company would took that out.
my mortgage company would have paid it by default, and I would have had no leverage whatsoever.
Clayton Norwig, and I thought that was the number, Clayton. I thought it was 30 to 40%.
It was
Clayton
a lot.
Norwig just said he recalled that at least 30% of that was unpaid. Now, this is my point about this is why I want to go with the 5 billion, 3 billion of that going to be recouped through fees. If 30 to 40% of the people of Georgia don't pay those fees, then that means 30 to 40% of that 3 billion that's supposed to be recouped through that method is not going to be recouped.
Well,
just being real, right?
I don't think it'll be as much because the legislation does specify that non-payment of fees can be attached as a lien to the
Well,
property.
Well, that's actually in two of those pieces of legislation. And I talked to the chairman the other day.
Mhm.
That's one of the pieces that they're going to have to, it's for it to have any chance of getting 2/3, you're going to have to be gone. That he
The
doesn't see.
lien option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. They do not see that this has a chance with the lien option in it.
Mhm.
So you and I both know without the lien option, Alex, it will probably be higher than the 30 or 40% that
Probably,
doesn't
yeah.
pay it. So,
Probably.
so
Again,
you,
and again, it depends. I don't know what the fees necessarily are. I mean, the way the legislation's written, it sounds like whatever it is, whatever they are charging the fee for, they have to present a budget that the fees cannot cannot create additional revenue, right?
no,
And it's supposed to be transparent. It's supposed to be reported, but we know how that goes,
well,
right?
but
Transparency in
just
government.
listen, the number of things that I listed, Alex.
I know it's insane. I know.
Right. I
And-
mean,
and
I'll give you a prime example. And this is why I want any of you senior citizens that are listening to the show right now, listen to this scenario. You pay $1,500 because you got exempt. You pay $1,500 a year, $2,000 a year now. 2032, you get 100% exempted from homestead. They add fees that are $1,500 to $2,000. You have to pay those because they're not going to be exempt from anything. Let me tell you guys, you're not going to get out of pay it. They're just shifting that tax. And that's what I've told you guys all along. It's a tax shift. If they're truly going to do this, they need to do it with pure sales tax. That's my opinion.
right. And they'll be collecting more revenue than they currently collect in the sales tax. Yeah. It's
Well, that's a concern too, because after speaking with the chairman and a few other legislators, they are concerned that rural counties and residential county and bedroom counties that don't have the high business volume
mhm.
may not collect as much as they do now
Yeah,
from
that's very
from,
possible.
from
yeah.
the stable property tax.
But we are,
that they
I mean,
have.
theoretically, we're a rural bedroom community.
We are
And-
actually one of those communities that they actually said that Rockdale County was one of the counties they looked at that may have a problem with this transition.
Yeah.
And you
But
can
the
see
thing
that,
is,
right?
I mean, we know what our numbers are, though, and they're incorrect about that. Our county will collect a substantially more money, $75 million just for the homestead properties. Business taxes and business property taxes and non-homestead will all be in addition to that. So our county would be set to bring in a lot more than they currently do.
I do not know if that'll happen. I am not confident that will happen. And I'm
Sure, no, I understand.
not confident.
Also, this protects the county, doesn't protect us, but protects the county because there are still things we have to buy, right? We have our necessities that we have to pay money for, regardless of what the economy is doing. In a downturn, if the housing market crashes, guess who still gets their revenue?
Well, you still get revenue if people
Exactly.
are buying.
Because now it's a consumption tax.
But in a downturn, people quit buying too, and that's what
Sure.
happens
Well,
also.
like I said, there are those necessities that we have to purchase, right? Well,
You
those,
have to have
those
some
are, those are going to be
necessities, yes.
taxed.
Yeah, they're going to be taxed, but this is where our disagreement comes on this. I don't think they're going to collect the money they think they're going to collect. I don't think it's going to happen because it's just too uncertain. Because I don't think, because you're not getting additional dollars, Alice, you're just trading
Right.
dollars. You're just trading dollars and you're reducing revenue. So there's no way you're going to get more. You already have the 1 cent host. You already have the splost. You're going to lose that revenue because you're able to tax people. So you are going to lose some of that
First
revenue.
of all, they won't need the host. And second of all, the SPLOST is optional. SPLOST has never been guaranteed. And I know it passes.
No, it's never been guaranteed, but it passes, and it became money that they're dependent
You're
on.
right. And that's a huge mistake. That's a problem for the county to
It
to
is
deal
it
with.
is a problem. It
yeah.
is a
Look,
problem. But that's the reality
Yeah.
we deal with.
I don't
You
think,
have to deal with the reality and the money that we're dealing with.
I don't think this legislation is ready for prime time. I will
It's
put
not
it that
ready.
way.
This is election year fodder,
And
is what
yeah,
it is. Pulled out as election year fodder.
yeah, it's not ready for
Let's-
prime
let's-
time, but I think it's a good direction to head.
I think it's a good direction to head if we realize these fees and assessments. And I'm really not a fan of the assessments, Alex,
Mhm.
because I come from a place that did these, and we called them excess levies. We didn't call them assessments, right? And what they are this. It's just like it's a SPLOST without the regulations. Okay.
Yes.
It's what it is. So and it's not a penny sales tax. Okay. It will be tax that's charged against your property at an additional rate is what an assessment does.
Yeah, assessments are a terrible idea.
Yeah, but this is
horrific.
This is a terrible idea.
The leanable tax assessments on your property completely negates the whole point of the legislation, which is to prevent you paying rent to the government.
I actually think with the fees are nothing more than hidden taxes.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned it before. You've got a senior citizen. All right, I'm not paying property tax. Then all of a sudden they levy these fees that are more than what you were paying in property taxes. Then they hit you with an assessment. Well, the assessment won't go to anybody who had property homestead. The assessment will only go to those who are going to be the businesses and rental and personal property, right? That's what the assessment will go again. It will not go against anyone who had a homestead.
Oh, I don't know.
So that will go against. No, that is what
Okay.
it is. It will. That's where the assessments go. Okay, so it's this is going to business are going to go ape shit, just whatever it is, because they are going to be taxed crazy.
Yeah, but then it's not like they can. Well, they could leave the state, I suppose, but it's not like they can leave one county and go to the next because it's going to be the same.
No, they're
the
not going
next
to leave
county
one and go
over.
to the other. It's going to be the same, but it's going to be crazy.
But then, how
right?
many times
So-
have we said we need to shift the tax burden from residential to business here in Rockdale?
Well, my idea of shifting it is fairly and lightly, not crazy and drive them out of business.
I mean,
You know what I mean? It's
I
totally
agree.
different.
I agree.
I mean, no matter how you
Look,
do it, you're gonna do a tax shift, right? You're gonna
Sure,
shift the
yeah.
dollars, and
Yeah.
and I think that it needs to be purely sales tax shift. That's my example, and I know, and I've got friends who will argue with me that it's regressive and it drive, and it's going to put people in poverty. Al, you're from Europe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Highest sales tax on the planet Earth.
Yeah,
Over there.
20%.
But you know what?
20%
You know
in
what?
England.
They have far less poverty than the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't.
in addition to all the other taxes, income taxes and national insurance
But-
taxes and
but
all that
I
stuff,
know, but
20% sales tax.
But the argument you get here is that if you do the sales tax, the poor are going to suffer. And you look at Europe and you look at the high sales tax they pay, and you have less poverty in Europe than you do here. I mean, I'm just saying, right? So the argument doesn't fly.
Yeah, no.
When you there's actually somewhere to look. You look they're already doing it, and
Right.
they have lower poverty. So
Right.
so that's not the problem in America. The reason we have poverty, so you can't say, I mean, the sales tax not it.
Right.
So VUCA says, no matter way you slice it, we got a big mess.
It's
Yeah.
it's like any legislation. It's initially very poorly written. We've run into a lot of that here in in Rockdale, in Georgia. We've run into a lot of this is poorly written legislation initially. I don't know what it will turn into. The fees and assessments, they're a problem. But moving to a consumption tax, I think it's the only sustainable way forward, quite frankly.
I do too. I really do too, Alex. And that's why when I thought they were going to originally, initially do it, and I thought it was going to be just the increase in the sales tax, really didn't have a problem with it. Right. I have got a big problem with these fees and assessments. Right. Because I just think it will be taken advantage of. And you and me, everybody, we're going to pay more than we do now, right? More than we do now.
Most people will. Now I will listen. I'm not gonna try to gloss over it. I like the idea of a consumption tax because I'm selfish. I'm a single person. I live alone. I consume very little. And with a consumption tax, I would pay very little tax. A family of 4, they may end up paying more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I know what you mean. But like I said,
if food is exempted, if you're like, for example, we talk about sales tax in Europe. VAT, they don't charge it on food at the grocery store. There's no sales tax on food. If they were to do that same thing here, that would, I think, be one of the biggest expenses for families. But if they don't do that, how much revenue? We pay sales tax currently on food. I'm sure we do. I hate to say it, but I don't look at my receipts to check. Okay.
We do.
So if they eliminated it on food, that would be a sizable chunk of revenue that they were going to lose there.
100%. But also, Alex, you got to look at this too. Not only did they introduce legislation to eliminate property tax, simultaneously introducing legislation to eliminate personal income tax.
Yes.
Too much.
Yeah, well, I mean, and how do they plan to fund that? From our surplus, or through?
Nope. I'm gonna tell you how. Nope. I went to a thing, heard all about this. Right. In theory, it sounds great, but again, this is one of them. Is it feasible? So it would not do away with business income tax, just personal income tax, and it would be phased out over a 6-year cycle. And right now, they say we give $30 billion in tax credits to businesses.
Okay.
We collect $16.2 billion in personal income tax. What the plan would be is to reduce those tax credits in half.
Okay.
And I think they also mentioned they would probably have to do a 2-cent sales tax to make sure. So the plan right now would be to add 2-cent sales tax and eliminate half of the tax credits to businesses.
Gotcha. Vuco says in Europe, you never lose your home due to high property tax. And I can tell you in England, which isn't technically part of Europe, that's not true. The council will come and steal your home if you don't pay your rates.
He said, why 6 years? Because they would phase it out, John. Like
they'll double dip for 6 years is what they'll do, John.
Well, this is because they're going to give exemptions, right? You're still going to file an income tax even when you don't pay it. So you would, like, for the first 2 years, it's like $50,000 exemption, right? So if you make $100,000 or under after year 2, you will pay no income tax, and then it keeps going up, just like the property tax one would do, to where they say in 2032 you owe no property tax. Same thing with the personal income tax. The exemption number goes up for 6 years. Then after that, it zeroes out. You don't owe any tax.
But if I'm reading it correct, for those 6 years, you're still paying the 5% sales tax. As property tax is being phased out, you're still paying the same 5% sales tax. So for the first 5 years, they'll be collecting even more revenue.
You're not well, I talk with, you're not allowed to do you're only allowed to do what recoups your
That's
money.
true. They do say any excess needs to be given back as property tax relief.
Yeah, you
Yes.
can't so.
But again,
so
we're trusting government to do that.
but I'll give you an example. So the Board of Education, they have a digest right now that tells you how much,
Mhm.
right? So right now their digest says the city of Conyers needs 1 penny and Rockdale County needs 1 penny. They say the Board of Education needs 1.8. So if we would do 2 cents, 0.2 has to go back. You know what I mean? And the county and the city can only collect 2 pennies. They're not allowed to collect that third penny.
If it goes over, you mean?
Yeah, they're not right now. Their digest says that it will only take
Yes.
1 penny for the city, 1 penny for the county. They would not be allowed to access that third penny.
I mean, I got to tell you,
unless-
I'm okay with that. If yeah,
Well, no, I'm
yeah.
I'm just telling you what, and that's what I was telling
Yeah.
you is
I see what you're saying.
I don't think the numbers are right because I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, those,
the 2
I
pennies
would
are gonna cover
imagine
it.
those are quite preliminary at the moment, and counties would have to report what they need. And again, then you have to trust that your county is going to report the accurate number and not try to pad it and take more from you. Or in the same vein, underreport, make the mistake and not collect enough revenue. Look, I do believe that we need the revenue that we truly need to operate. My problem was just with the bloat that we've seen. You know, our budget in 2019, our budget was like $50 million. In 2026, we're over $100 million in Rockdale County, more than doubled in 6 years. I mean, come on. So, you know, I like the direction that this legislation wants to take us. I don't think this legislation is it. I think it's very poorly written. I think consumption taxes are the correct way moving. Property taxes just aren't it. They just
Oh,
aren't.
I know property taxes are not it, Alex, because you can't. These values are just going up so high, and there's no way people are going to be able to continue paying those numbers.
Right.
I'll give you a good example. I read a report the other day. So by 2030, your average house is going to be worth value $650,000 in the United States.
Mhm.
So the report stated that home ownership, if you don't own a home by 2030, it might be out of reach.
Right.
Because of the down payment you would have to have on something, $650,000 and such, right? So there's a problem we're looking at is home ownership being out of reach. But we don't only have a problem with the taxing of these properties, we have a problem with the assessment of our properties also.
Right.
We over assess the value of these houses. And you and I, but if you plan on keeping your house, what does that assessed value really any mean, right? If you don't plan on selling it, doesn't mean anything, right?
No, it just means more taxes.
It
is
just
what
means more tax is all it
Yeah.
means. And that's the thing about it is part of the problem is our assessment system.
Yeah.
We have an assessment system that's terrible. And William Campbell, I agree with you 100%. We do have a spending problem. 100% there's a spending problem.
Yeah,
100%.
governments got greedy. As home values increased, they saw a windfall. Instead of rolling back millage rates and just collecting the same revenue that they'd collected, they took in this windfall. They became dependent on this windfall, and now we're all paying the price for it, to the point where now the legislature's looking at another way to try to fund this, and part of it is to try and reel these people in, right? The municipalities and the school boards.
So I have
School boards,
you
you
know,
guys
we're
have gotten a bit out of hand, if we're
dude,
being honest.
I'm going to tell you, Alex, I thought I knew you would get there and make some sort of comment that I don't agree on about the school board. School boards have gotten out of control at some point, right?
There you go.
But let me explain some things. Over the last 4 years, the state has mandated $22 million for the Rockdale County school system to spend just in two things, healthcare and retirement. 1 year, there was a $9.1 million mandate. 1 year. That's not, this is just $22 million in 4 years, Alex, just for two things, health insurance and retirement. That doesn't include all the other mandates that have come down from the federal Department of Education and from the Georgia Department of Education, which mandates aren't just mandates. At the end of the day, dollar signs follow them because you have to have people and things to make it happen. So the good majority of what has happened in Rockdale, and there's another issue. There was overstaffing. Okay. There was overstaffing at the central office, which was dealt with last year. And we have overstaffing at the schools this year, right? That was the result of a former high-ranking employee maybe fudging the numbers. You know what I mean? But that has been dealt with. Those enrollment numbers are now accurate, and you are going to have a correct employee to a teacher to student ratio. 88% of the school board's budget is payroll. So if you reduce that payroll to the limits that it needs to be, and staffing is where it needs to be, you have 12% to then operate the rest of your school district. And that is a normal number across the country. 85 to 90% is where the payroll is because it is a heavy people-driven industry because you need teachers. So if you got your payroll in check, there is very little elsewhere to be bloated. And that's the reality of it. Whether people want to believe it or not, that's the reality. But you have to make sure that your people, your personnel, that's not bloated and those numbers are accurate.
Sure. I don't disagree with you. The problem is it's now a jobs program and you have, well, you tell us, you're on the school board, how many administrators and how many teachers? How many staff total, and of those staff, how many are teachers?
Well, dude, we have reduced that staff. I'd have to get those numbers because that's changed, right? So I'm not. Right. I don't want to just throw numbers out, right? But we do not have.
I'm not here to attack you.
No, but we do. We reduced
working on it. I know that.
But we did reduce that staffing, and the staffing is now. It's where it has to be because there are programs we're mandated to do. Okay, got to talk about those mandates again. We're mandated to do certain things. So you have to have people to manage those mandates. So right now we are at the staffing that is required to do everything we're required to do. And like I said, the teaching numbers, the student rate, the student enrollment was a little more than it should have been estimated. We have now got that number to where it's an accurate number, an actual number. So those teacher to student ratio is going to be an accurate number moving forward. So once those numbers were taken care of, there is no bloated personnel system. The numbers are what they are. And you can call it a jobs program if you want. But when you have when you have the person, you just don't like education, Alex.
Well,
right?
You agreed before you were on the board.
Well, no, I did agree, and I went in and we take care of it. We reduced those numbers to where they needed to be.
By what?
We
what
reduced
was the reduction.
We reduced the $4.5 million last year at the central office, and it's going to be near $4.5 million this year.
No, I mean, what was the reduction in? You say you addressed the bloat.
We did. We reduced it by $4.5 million. We reduced assistant superintendents. We reduced the number of directors. We reduced it by $4.5 million in payroll
of payroll and benefits money.
Yes.
Is that what that is? Okay.
Yes.
Like I said, you're working on it.
$4.5 million.
Right?
Well, sometimes the start is the finish. Right.
It may very well be. It may very well be. But again, that's another reason that property taxes aren't the way to fund this.
Well,
because it's not going to get smaller.
But that's not the disagreement. But to call something a jobs program when you've had people go in and reduce it is not a fair assessment.
I mean, I will. I'm going to call it a jobs program. I always will.
Well, I know you will,
You've
but
agreed with me.
I have
And,
agreed in the past when it was over,
yeah.
when it was bloated. But
Yeah,
now
I mean,
that
as
it's
long
not,
as there are 2 or 3 administrators per teacher, it's a jobs program.
there are not 2 or 3 administrators per teacher. There are many more. The teacher to administrator ratio, that I don't know where you come up with that crazy number.
Well, I don't know what it is, and you just said you'd have to get.
I'd
those
have to get
numbers.
with numbers with you, but
Yeah.
it's not that, Alex.
Okay.
You have many more teachers than you have administrators. There are not 2 to 3 administrators per teacher.
Okay.
Let's just say if you have 40 or 50 teachers in a school and you've got
Yes.
3 administrators, is that 2 to 3 administrators per teacher?
No, of course not.
And that's the numbers you're looking at, Alex. That's
Okay.
more of a realistic thing you're looking at. 40 or 50 teachers in a school and 2 to 3 principals. That's
Okay.
what you're looking at. So somebody would come up with a ridiculous number like that. That's not even an
Well,
educated guess.
you've heard people talk about that.
Well, but
You've
I've
heard
never
that
I've
number.
never agreed with that number because
Okay.
I never thought that was a realistic number. But I did think there were too many people at the central office at one time.
Mhm.
At one time.
At one
I don't
time,
think-
sure. And I understand that your perspective on it is now different because you're
Well, my
working
perspective
in the system.
my perspective of it is different because changes have been made. If
They have, like I said,
if-
you're working on it. You've
but
made
if
a
but
lot
but
of
if somebody
changes
would
the
come
year
in
you've
and
been
try to actually increase that and take that in a different direction, I would be
Yeah.
the very first one to say we don't need to go backwards.
Gotcha. I'm actually trying to find numbers while we're talking, and every single page, this might be something you pass on to them. Every single page I'm going to at the Rockdale County Public Schools, 404 page not found so far for anything related to budget. 404 page not found.
Would it be last year's? Because if it's this year's budget, it's being done. It's not. It's in the process.
Sure. I'm trying to look at the 5-year history, which is a page that was there that's no longer there. 404 page not found. But whatever. It is what it is. I was just trying to look at some numbers. But no, listen. I'm the first one to say that since you've been on the board, there have been some good changes. I'm the person that said it's a shame. It's a shame that Justin Kenny is leaving the board in order to run for judge, because since he's been on the board, there have been some good changes. Now, I don't believe there's any reason to believe those changes are going to stop. There's no reason for me to think that the progress we're making is suddenly going to reverse. But it was nice knowing that Justin was on the board. You know what I'm saying?
100%. I enjoyed having Justin on the board also.
And I agree. Some positive moves has been made. I hope they continue. I really do. And I'm not trying to say that they're not. I'm not trying to say you haven't done anything. I know you have. We appreciate it. That's why you were sent there, right? That's why Justin was sent there.
It is
to
why,
make some
and
changes.
And I, like, I'm going to tell you, like some of my colleagues, I don't intend to make it a lifetime career.
Sure.
Right.
You
I'm
said that
I know
going
I'm
into
probably
it.
going to get some people pissed at me for making that statement just now, but I don't intend for my butt to sit up there for 3 and 4 terms. Right.
Yeah, you said that going into it.
I'm a two-term. If I'll serve this term, and if I'm fortunate enough to get elected one more term, then that would be my limit. So I'm not even going to be on the board if this thing passes and 2032 rolls around. It'll be my last year on the board, right?
Now, if legislation comes up during that term, right, during the remainder of your first term to the second term, I think we both agree this isn't it.
No, it's
right?
not.
This isn't. I don't think it's written. There's too much uncertainty in this legislation that they've written. But again, we agree that property taxes aren't the way forward. It needs to be a consumption tax or a sales tax. So if they were to introduce this in a different form that was just a pure sales tax, that might be something. Again, details matter, but that might be something you could get behind.
Yeah. I was going to, Jesus, he's not talking about the total number. He's actually looking at some details in the budget as far as for personnel numbers,
Right.
not the overall number. He was wanting personnel numbers.
Yeah. Because I mean, the majority of that is how much of those numbers that Jesus has posted, of those numbers, what portion of that do Rockdale taxes cover?
It'll be the whatever we collect in.
It's going to be the
property.
Same as what the county
Yeah,
collects,
same
right?
exact same dollar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
maybe
exact same.
60. Last year, 61 million, and the rest was made up for by the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be the exact same number.
So
right?
here's the thing with the new system. I've talked about the county would make a win. I think the county would make a ton of money under that.
I think the county
The
is going to make a
school-
ton of money.
The school system would come up short, at
Yep.
least on the local part of it. They'd be looking at 2 pennies, or you say 1.8 because of the current digest.
Yes.
But let's I'm going to round it up to 2, which means they would be collecting $50 million based on what the SPLOST collects currently. The schools would only get $50 million locally, and the state would have to make up even more of the difference, right?
Yep. If they would.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Have
I mean,
they
well,
said-
with the form, well, they don't know. That's
Okay.
what's all's working out. And then you've got to remember, and this is at the same
because
time.
I don't trust. Just so you know, I don't want the schools to have to struggle.
Oh, and if you're a rural bedroom community school system, you would
Mhm.
struggle. Okay. Now, Gwinnett's and DeKalb's and Fulton's and Henry, I mean, those large counties with a lot of businesses would not,
Right.
because they would be able to collect those sales taxes, right?
Right.
So, but you're right. I mean, we would, and this thing about it, Alex, you've got Richard Woods is right now proposing teacher pay increases for $10,000, $2,000 over the next 5 years each.
Right.
Right. Those are mandates. Okay.
Right.
The state wouldn't be funding that. That would be where we gonna come up with it, right? So you're looking at cutting what you're getting, but raising all that, right?
Right.
So you got to remember that $2,000 increase just isn't a $2,000 increase.
Because there's insurance and benefits on top of that.
Yes, it is. So it's millions of dollars.
Right.
So, and I'll tell you something else about the QBE formula a lot of people aren't aware of. So when the state does these mandates and these increases, like the 9.5 million and the 4.5 and all these, the last 2 years we were able to pay for them through some cuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the 1 year Justin and them were not able to pay for it through a cut. They did a tax increase.
Right.
So when you do a tax increase, do you know what happens the next year in the QBE formula?
They
reduce the amount of money they give you because you raise taxes.
Oh, because I see.
So
Even more of the burden shifts locally.
The more the burden shifts locally, the more they mandate and you raise taxes to cover it, then the next year they give you less money, forcing you to what? Raise taxes.
Raise taxes. Right. Because right now that's the only solution. Well, I mean, there's cuts, obviously, but like you said, you've made your cut. And again, I don't want you to think I'm critical. I know you made cuts. I know you did, and I think we've all said, thank God.
So John put this up here just now, right? See, he ran some numbers, and that's what he came up with. So that $2,000 raise is actually a $3,140 increase,
right?
Per employee,
per employee
per year.
Yeah. Now, they say for teacher pay, I'm assuming it would be for everybody in the school system.
No,
it would just be for teachers.
Just be for teachers, and then what you have to, because then when they do that, a lot of pressure there. Now, how do you give one group of people a raise and not give everybody else a raise, right? So, so there you end up having not maybe a good
No,
no synchronicity in
where
the,
you're coming from.
you know what I mean? So it's actually going to be more than that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And this is what happens when state politicians play politics during an election year, isn't it? Oh yeah, we'll give teachers a lot more money. That burden ultimately falls on the homeowner.
Yep. Well, and when you look at this year with what they're planning on doing, that's what I wanted to get into some numbers about the legislature. Okay. There are 180 House members, Alex. 100 of those House members are Republicans. 80 of them are Democrat.
Right.
To do a 2/3 majority, it would take 120 House members. That means all 100 Republicans would have to vote for this, and they have to get 20. I don't think all 100 Republicans, first of all, would vote for this legislation.
Yeah, okay? No, I don't think so either.
And then you'd have to get whatever that doesn't vote plus that 20, right? So that's a lot, right? The Senate, currently there are 31 Republican senators and 23 Democrats, but there are 2 short because you have 2 Republicans that resigned, and we're having special elections. So 1 Republican seat, which are both safe Republican seats, one of them will be filled before crossover day. Okay. So that would be, what I say? I said 30. So you'd have 32, right? So you need 6 Democrat senators to cross over to make a 2/3, right? And this is an election year where I'm going to make a prediction on my show right now, Alex. I'm predicting that Republicans will not win all statewide elections this year. I'm predicting that it will be a mixed match, that you will have Democrats win some of the statewide elections. And I'm going to tell you which 2 that I think are the most vulnerable: the Attorney General's office and the Secretary of State's office. Those are 2 that I think are the most vulnerable at this point, because I know probably who's going to be the front runner for the Attorney General's race, and not a dynamic candidate. Actually, a pretty boring person. So that's just my opinion, right? So hope you're not watching the show.
He might be.
Yeah. So, but I think those 2 are very vulnerable seats. Okay. And the governor and lieutenant governor's seats they're not shoe-ins, Alex, right? Because I saw some polling the other day that took the Ossoff seat from a toss-up to leaning Democrat. Okay. So if that seat is leaning Democrat, that impacts those other statewide races.
Yeah.
So that, and midterm elections usually don't fare well for the party who holds the White House. So I'm just my take on it, right? From the cheap seats, right? That's the way I see it. I don't see this, but what do I think could be something that happens positive this legislative session for homeowners, especially homestead property owners? Local legislation. I think you've got the opportunity for local legislators to actually introduce local legislation to help with property tax relief until something major is able to happen, right?
Can I talk about the one? Are you able to talk about?
I'm not about to talk about the one, but I think we're going to have 2 different types of local legislation, and I think probably can talk about them next Sunday, because I think one of them there might be an ad that's going to run this week, right? So I think, but I think both pieces of legislation that may come across and have a chance, to do something would give significant property tax relief to Rockdale County citizens, right? And that's what I would like to see. But I think you've got other delegations in other counties and stuff statewide have already begun to drop local legislation
Right.
to actually because they don't want to put their eggs in this one basket of 1114
Right.
because it's probably not a good idea to do. And I think some of our actually I know some of our local legislators are going to do the exact same thing. They're going to drop some bills to try to give you property tax relief.
Yeah.
And
I hope you're able to talk about it soon, because I think people will be very interested in that.
I think one of the bill we're going to be able to have access to one of the bills next week.
Okay, good.
Because I think the ad's supposed to run next week, Al, and when they run the ad, they run the bill.
Okay.
So it'll be a very interesting bill, and I'll tell you what, I don't think you're going to have a person in Rockdale County that's going to be upset about this legislation. You may have a couple that are going to be upset.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, no. Obviously we can't say a whole lot. I'll go back to this bill, this current bill. This bill says it amends our Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what necessitates the 2/3 majority?
That's what necessitates the 2/3 majority, and you have to have at least 60.
It has to be a
referendum with, I think, at least 60% too.
Okay.
So the 2/3 thing kicks in both ways. It's got to pass referendum that much too.
I see.
So it has to pass 2/3. That's what kicks it in. And I'll tell you something else, Alex. So if this legislation doesn't do one thing, you've got a problem as far as education, because Article 8 of the Georgia Constitution requires the state of Georgia to provide an equal and fair education to all K through 12 students in the state of Georgia. A fully funded, equal and fair education. That's Article 8 of the Georgia Constitution. So they've got to be careful with this legislation because it could fall short. And in 2032, you may have some school boards sue the state of Georgia for failing to fund education.
Yep. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, I'll be honest. If I'm on a school board and they pass this thing in 2032 and this school system is struggling because of this legislation, I will definitely recommend that the Rockdale County school system sue the state of Georgia for violating the Constitution.
Yeah, I mean, this legislation isn't it, but the school system does come out worse for the county does great. The school system comes out worse for this legislation. I do want to say something though. Somebody made a comment earlier about, already paying a cost of goods and 5% tax isn't going to help. It would be important to understand that in Rockdale, 2 of those pennies we already pay, right? They would just be reallocated to this. So we would be paying an additional 3 pennies.
We actually have 3 of those pennies
currently
now.
pay. Oh, we have the East-Blost as well, don't we?
We have 3 of those pennies. So you have the East-Blost, the regular
The
Splost, and
host
the host.
and the Splost. Yeah, that's right.
So it would only be, it's only 2 additional pennies.
We'd be paying 2 additional pennies for the privilege of doing away with all your property taxes. So, I mean, that's not a bad deal if it is sustainable, if it's able to fund what we need to fund. And
let's talk about one thing though, because Voice of Rockdale asked me about HB 712.
Okay.
So I mentioned earlier in the show that HB 712, HB 1035, and Resolution 1114 all have provisions in it which make it illegal to put fees on property tax bills. And those are pieces of legislation that are introduced by Democrats and Republicans, right? So I look for that type of legislation at some time it's going to get passed because there's apparently both sides seem to be gravitating to they don't want fees.
Which you have to admit is a bit odd because we tried to get that a number of years ago and it got thrown out. You remember?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now they all want it.
Now they, because let me tell you why. You know why, Alex? Because they're foreclosing on people's homes because of those fees. And I'm going to tell you how they're doing it. Because 712, all these legislation also specifically mention this, that if a partial payment is made on a property tax bill,
Right.
the payment has to be
Pays the
allocated
fees first.
No, it has to be property tax first.
Okay.
Now, I know somebody in Rockdale County who paid their property taxes, the exact number, and they said, I want my property taxes paid, not these fees. What do you think the county did? They
Came after him.
They paid the fees first, then
Yep.
allocated the rest of the money there. So that made them have a shortfall in their property
taxes.
tax bill.
Yep.
So this legislation, all of these legislations actually do that. They actually prevent you from paying the fees first if that is an option. But what they actually do is they eliminate the fees coming in. But it also says if these fees are in place and they're separate bills, they can't intermix the money. What you pay for property taxes cannot be allocated anywhere else.
Yeah. They're talking about moving to an impervious surfaces fee here in Rockdale.
Really?
Yeah. Which means everybody is either going to have to get a survey or get screwed, is probably what's going to happen. Because I don't know how they're going to calculate impervious surfaces for every property. I imagine what they're going to be doing is sitting down on Google Earth and just drawing some polylines and saying, "Oh yeah, it's roughly this."
Then
which is a terrible way of doing it.
But didn't we just have a conversation about out of control fees?
Yep.
And what that could happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a fee is nothing more than a hidden tax. In 2025, the Georgia Supreme Court ruled that stormwater charges were fees, but there was also a part of another decision, part of the decision that the judge agreed with. But he also wrote this, one of the other judges, that in the future it depended on how these fees were defined. They could eventually be considered taxes.
Right.
So they're admitting right now there's a fine line
They
between
are.
this,
Yes,
but there's a fine line between fee and tax, right?
Yeah.
So I did want I do have a little piece of paper here. Hold on one second. That actually wanted to say where it went to. Okay. So the difference between a fee and a tax. Primary purpose is the charge, right? A fee, the primary purpose is to compensate the government for a specific service or to regulate a particular activity. The tax, the primary purpose is to raise general revenue for public use or broad public benefit. Then you've got another one, and it says use of the fund. Fee. Revenue must be placed in a dedicated enterprise fund used exclusively for the specific program it funds. Tax. Revenue typically goes into the general fund where it can be used for any government expense.
Oh,
well, now, Alex, let me ask you a question.
They would love fees to be classified as taxes.
Let me ask you a question, though. I want to know right now, does the Rockdale County government put the stormwater, the SPLOST, and the host in another bank account, or do they just run a ledger? I have been told by former CFOs that they ran it by ledger and that they were not in separate accounts.
That's what I've always been told. So
is that not, is that actually going to the letter of the law?
Well, no, it would not be. If that's the law in Georgia, the one you just read, fees versus taxes, then no. If what we've been told about how they manage money, which is effectively one account, then no, it would not be.
Well, but if you put everything in one
conforming
account, you
to
can
the
have
letter
great
of the law.
cash flow, don't you?
Oh, you sure do.
So
You
maybe
you
if the
can always
cash,
show
maybe if
good
the
positive cash flow.
maybe if the cash flow maneuver, right?
Could very well be. Yeah. I mean, either way, you know me. Government's always out to get us. And the government's always going to do what's best for government, not for the citizen. And is that cynical? Yeah, it probably is. But I think history has shown that that's the case. They will apply your money to their stormwater fee before your property taxes, so that they can come and steal your home.
And that's what they want to do. And in one of these bills, I think it might be 1035. It also deals with HOA fees, because if you owe up to $4,000 in penalties and fees to your HOA, they can foreclose on your home.
Really?
In the state of Georgia, you owe HOA $4,000, they can foreclose on your home.
I did not know. I should know that, but I didn't know that.
But that is one of these pieces of legislation goes to eliminate that and make it a civil action instead
that
of.
should just be.
I'm going to be honest.
No,
I
that's
don't
ridiculous.
think if you owe fees or any of this stuff, that they should be able to foreclose on your home.
No.
Right?
No.
This stuff
Absolutely
is
not.
out of control and it's ridiculous.
Mhm.
Nobody should lose their home. Alex, I've told you about this. I don't think whether people like it or not, I think we've got to go away. I don't think anybody over 70 years old should be paying property taxes anyway. Right?
Yeah.
I think at some point you need to own your damn home.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that just tells me pay very close attention to the restrictive covenants if you join a homeowners association.
John, in the state of Georgia, that's the state law. Is it if you owe $4,000 or more, they can foreclose on you. But that's why they've got
who takes possession? The
HOA
homeowners association.
Yes. Alex, let me ask you a question. Right, you and I are people who may piss somebody off. Okay, we live in an HOA. They decide they don't like how we mow our grass. They decide they don't like where we park our car. They don't decide all these little rules they have. They can nitpick you and me to death to $4 or $5 grand, and then foreclose on us
easily, very quickly.
So that is actually what you've got Georgia legislators saying that's happening. That you have vindictive HOA officials that are going after
people they
don't like, and getting these fees up there and foreclosing on their homes. That's exactly what you've had Georgia legislators say that is happening, and that's why you've got this type of legislation that's being introduced.
Has to be fixed.
So I know one of the legislators that has introduced this. You may have seen her before. When Rhonda has her town halls, she'll have Representatives Viola Davis from DeKalb County come over sometimes.
Yeah.
Viola is one of the authors of one of those bills.
Yeah.
So of the HOA bill.
You should have her on.
Huh?
You should have her on and talk to her.
So, but yeah, and I think it's a great piece of legislation, right? There's no way an HOA should be able to foreclose on you for penalties, right?
That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, sue me, get rid of me. But I think part of this legislation says if the HOA gets out of control and up to 20% people sign a petition, you can vote to disband the HOA.
Yeah. Are you able to scroll down the comments?
I am. I can scroll down mine. I don't know if you see it or not. What do you want to see?
I want to see George's comment.
George said, call him. He said something about they were already doing, Janice says taking the stormwater off the tax be a night for me. It will likely result in elimination of many necessary capital projects. Janice, I get that, right? But it's just me. I just don't like that fee being on that tax bill. And I think it's going to eventually be gone.
Well, and again, from my own personal anecdote, where I refused to pay my fee as leverage, that's you lose that entirely when it's just automatically applied to your tax bill. This drainage ditch would never have been fixed.
Well, I just want to say something, Janice. I think you need to provide that documentation that those separate accounts exist. And I'm going to tell you why. I was on a Zoom call with a former chief financial officer of this county who stated the county only had one account, all the money went in one account, and they were separated by a ledger. So if what you're saying is accurate, then that needs to be put out there, because you had a former CFO in a Zoom in, and there are several of the people in this chat right now were on that Zoom call with that former CFO that made that comment. Alex, I think you may have even sent send the video.
I have the recording of the whole thing,
and that was said.
Yeah. I do recall. I think I recall that being said. At the time, we were focusing on the hold on. At the time, we were focusing on
the financial literacy of this board is not where it should be.
At the time, we were focusing on that.
And that's why, for me, that we have myself, we have consultants, financial consultants, who are saying one thing, and we have a board that wants to go in another.
Anyway, I have the.
But you're right. But you're right. But that person stated that everything went in one account, and they kept everything separate on ledgers. That was what was said. Yeah. So just saying. So, you know, is that how he did it? And you guys changed it?
Yeah, maybe that's changed.
Did that happen for years and now it doesn't happen anymore? Or, you know, just saying. That's what we were told in a meeting once. Just telling you, I didn't make it up, and Al's got the video. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I've, in fact, even before that meeting, it's what we've, I mean, I know you and I, when we were, for years when we were doing the show.
We were told that. We actually did open records requests, and we're told that.
Yeah, and maybe that's maybe that has that has changed. It was like we always talked about the
missing money.
We always talked about the surplus.
Well, we knew it wasn't real, remember?
Which was never real.
Yeah. So Janice, okay, I want to put this up, right? So I will fully research this issue this week to assure that the information is accurate. So, because hey, you may be being told you got accounts, and you may have to fire somebody next week, Janice. Just saying, you know, that can happen. Well, Alex, let's let these people go. I think we've kept them long enough, but they've really stayed. I think they like it. So I think even I got a little feisty tonight. Whatever. You bring that out in me, man. So,
well, you're on the board now. You're part of the system, Larry.
I hear you, man.
You are the man.
I am a reluctant part of the system, Alex.
No, I know. And again, I want to listen. You went there to make changes. You're making changes, and I appreciate the changes. So I will say that.
Gotcha. Well, guys, I want to thank y'all for joining us tonight. And next week, Al, would you do me if we will be able to talk about some of those bills? I think it would be good for you to come back, and me and you talk about that one bill that we definitely be able to talk about. Because let's do that. So we're going to talk about that, right? So guys, I want to thank you guys for joining me this evening. And as always, it's been a pleasure to have you, and I've been honored for you to be my guest tonight. And Alex, thanks for joining me on the show. And if you got something to say.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Folks, it's like everything. These bills, when they come out, take them with a grain of salt, read them thoroughly. And you'll, as much as I should love this bill, it just isn't it.
Well, I'm going to tell you, Alex, I do know that some legislators were going to share this show tonight. And so people might not take my calls next week.
Right.
So it is what it is. So, but thanks, guys, and we'll see you next week. And Al, just